My name is Suzanne Wahhab. Right now I'm an accountant and also the president of Palestinian Christians in Australia. But most of the time now I do this kind of volunteer charity work, especially after October last year. My business, my time in my business has reduced so that I can focus on the charity work because the community needs it a lot. So I don't know if I'm still an accountant, as such, 100% of the time.
Okay.
I'm here because I don't know. I just feel like I need to do something. Every time I think about quitting it because it's just so hard, I just think I can't quit halfway. So we came to Australia in October '86.
Okay.
I've just finished year 11 in Ramallah, which is where I grew up, and that's in the West Bank in Palestine. And when we came here, we had a big cultural shock.
Okay.
And I actually really wanted to go back because in Ramallah I used to live half my week at my grandmother's house and the other time at my parents' house because I was looking after my grandmother because she was living alone. So I would go home on the weekend and be with my grandmother during the week. And when I came to Australia, I just wanted to leave and go back to my grandmother. Yeah, actually, when we landed, there was that smell, like when we landed, at the airport, Sydney airport, I could smell the sea.
Okay.
And that smell just stayed with me the whole time. It was beautiful October day. It was nice, and the weather was just perfect. I still remember the weather. And every now and then when you get that kind of weather on an evening, I just remember the day when my uncle came and drove us from the airport to his house. But my second day in Australia was horrible. It was my first day at school, second day in Australia. And I went to school, they enrolled me at school at Canterbury Girls High. And it was a big cultural shock for me because I came from a small town, first of all, and then, I came to a big city. So there was a big difference. I also was in a Catholic school, very strict nuns, and then I walk into a public school with girls screaming everywhere, short skirts, smoking in the toilets, and that was a big cultural shock for me.
Okay.
But the big thing that affected me, second day in Australia, first day at school, and it still affects me till now. So I've been here for that long, nearly 36 years. It's how Australia greeted me as a Palestinian. I was standing in line at school and wanted to get some books, and a girl behind me who turned out to be Lebanese, she said, where are you from? And I said, from Palestine. But a teacher was walking past and she heard me say the word Palestine, and she stopped in her tracks and she turned around and she looked at me and she said, there is no such thing as Palestine, and from now on you need to call it Israel. I said, no way, I just came from Palestine. And she goes, no, it is Israel. I said, no, it is Palestine. And then we had this altercation back and forth, Israel, Palestine, Israel, Palestine, Israel, Palestine. And then she goes, if you want to succeed in Australia, you'd better say it's Israel. And then she walked away and I said, I don't care, it's Palestine. So yeah, that was my first impression, and it just kept going. Every time somebody saw me, met me with my accent, long curly hair, everybody would ask, where are you from? And I say Palestine, and I would get bombarded. I would get told off. When I went to uni, they called me Arafat lover. I was called a terrorist. I was called that there's, you're stateless, that we shouldn't ask for much. We're lucky that we're in Australia and we should keep our mouth shut. So these are the things that people were telling me about being Palestinian. That by the time I finished school, university, so after 4 years of studying in Australia, I, wanted to get a job, and then everybody told me, see, you can't say you're from Palestine, you can't say you're Palestinian. If you say you're Palestinian, you're not gonna get a job. And that's when my life kind of turned upside down. And for the first boss, I said I was Palestinian. He was Greek. He was actually Greek Cypriot. And he goes, you Palestinians, you're like us Cypriots. You're occupied as well. And so he was okay with me. But when I got the next job, the employer was Australian, and my family told me, please don't say you are Palestinian. So I lied. I said I was Lebanese. And that's when I started this lie, like lies after lies, because my boss was more curious about being Lebanese because a friend of his was Lebanese. So where are you from, which city, which side of the city you're from, and all this, and I'm making things up, and I hated myself. And one of the reasons why I left was because I could no longer tell them I keep this charade of being Lebanese, even though Lebanese culture, Lebanese people, like, we're, from my perspective, we're the same people, but it's just lying and saying I'm from Lebanon rather than I'm from Palestine is completely different, right? Actually, we had a good life there. My parents really did well, like, in their business. My mom worked so hard. She was the first woman to run a shop in Ramallah, in a small town. Everybody talked about us because my mother went to work, because all the moms were stay-at-home moms. But my mom had to help my dad because we were in so much debt. I actually wrote about it in my book called Money Intelligence. After 10 years of them working together, they, built up the business, and we ended up with a good life. But the reason we left was because in 85, my cousin was picked up by the Israeli army. There was a curfew, and they just snatched him from in front of our shop just when the curfew just started. He was on his bike, and he disappeared for 18 days. He got tortured for no reason whatsoever, just because he broke the curfew's time. It just started. And my parents realized, my God, they would torture you for no reason whatsoever. You're not doing anything, just being who you are, just being Palestinian, walking the streets of Ramallah. And my parents said that could happen to our kids. My uncle thought the same way. So both families ended up leaving a year later. And that was the reason why we ended up in Australia. We got uncles in here that were in Australia since the early 60s. So they helped us with the sponsorship, and basically within 3 months we were here. It was just the right timing in the 80s when so many families were welcomed in Australia. Yeah, so we didn't come as refugees, we came as migrants. Well, my family is very productive. We're like very enterprising, and I think it's just my parents. My parents were motivating us. We just, I was always academic. I loved studying. I think it was, if I would say it's going to education. Education is the most valued thing for Palestinians, but in our family it's a big thing, and so we just focused on studying and getting better. After I finished my bachelor in accounting, I went and did masters straight away, and I just buried myself in books, I think. But yeah, every now and then you just get annoyed by somebody making a comment, and it could be anybody. It could be the professor, it could be a student next to you, anyone. That's what my experience has been. I got married to a Fijian Indian, so I already have we're already a mixed culture, culturally mixed family. But my husband now is fully versed in Palestinian history and politics. He knows everything about Palestine because of me and my son as well. We do a lot of Palestinian events and things, and so both of them have to put up with my Palestinian cooking, and most of the parties we go to are more Palestinian, and and my son has to go to the rallies when we go to the rallies, so it is being forced on him.
You don't think he's enjoying it?
Oh, sometimes he enjoys it when he goes with his cousins, but if he goes on his own, he doesn't enjoy it. When we first came to Australia, it was hard for me to accept going into another culture. I remember having these issues in my head about losing my identity, and it took me more than 10 years to get to a point where I feel like I'm not fully Palestinian and I'm not fully Australian. So when I came, I was fully Palestinian, and I had this issue, to embrace being fully Australian. But I think the people I met along the way, there's a lot of multicultural people, people with various identities here in Australia, and I feel like now I'm embracing being fully Palestinian but fully Australian. Like, Palestinian Australian is together for me. It's not a hyphen, it's both words have kind of merged together. So I feel like I'm both. I'm not one or the other, whereas before there was I'm either gonna be either Palestinian or I'm just gonna be Australian. But for me now, the merge, it's just I'm just I've got my own culture, which is Palestinian Australian, and everyone's welcome to take it on. So I lied. Let's go back to the second job. I lied for 3 years that I was Lebanese, not Palestinian, and then I went for another job, and I decided that I would let the boss know right from the beginning that I was Palestinian. And so at the interview, he asked me, of course, because I was just new in the country, 6-7 years, and then he asked me where I'm from, and I said I'm from Palestine. He goes, oh, that's interesting, and then that was it, right? He was one of 4 partners in an accounting firm, and he was Australian, Anglo-Australian. So all good. I show up on the first day at work, and people just come in, and I've got this long hair because I had really long hair, really long curly, really thick curly hair. And people, the moment they see me, they go, oh, where are you from? And so I would tell them, I started telling them, I'm from Palestine, I'm Palestinian. And then within half an hour, everybody in the office knew I was Palestinian. There's 50 people in the office, and then this guy walks in and he goes, just wanted to let you know, this is a Jewish firm. And I said, what? He goes, I heard you were telling everybody that you're Palestinian. I said, yeah. Oh my God. I thought, and I said to him, oh my God, they're going to sack me. So there were 2 other partners who were Jewish. And the whole day, I'm waiting for them to sack me, right? But nobody did. They embraced me. It was fantastic. Nobody said anything. There were different cultures at work. Greeks and Sri Lankans and Indians and Chinese. Everybody was embraced, including the Palestinians. So it just emboldened me, actually, because if even the Jewish bosses would accept me for who I am, then I could just be me. And so when after 3 years later, I started my own business. Just because I come from an entrepreneurial family and I can't just be an employee. I'm gonna start my own business. And I told everybody, everywhere I go, where are you from? Everybody asks me where you from. I would say I'm from Palestine. And so I remember when when the internet came and you said you have your email address and we set up our website, I thought, you know what, I'm going to spare all these questions. So I'm going to write, about who the partners are. I'm going to write that I'm Palestinian Christian. And I just wrote it everywhere. And now everybody knows if they're going to come and, become a client of mine, they're going to know who I am because they're going to see the website. So, yeah, there's less people asking that question now. But, yeah, some clients didn't like what was going on. And so they were like, we don't want to talk about it. And some clients wanted to know more. I feel like there's something changed now. Before I was embraced as a Palestinian, but I feel like there are certain groups or certain people who do not. I think it's put a lot of pressure on my mental health, but the mental health issue has been in our communities for the past five months, because since the bombing started, the bombings in Gaza, a lot of our families a lot of people in Sydney have got families in Gaza, and so they're not hearing the news from ABC or Al Jazeera. They're getting WhatsApp messages from their families stuck in churches and stuck in their houses saying, this is, I just got bombed, or the family got bombed and the neighbors died. We're getting first-hand, yes, and it brought out a lot of trauma for us. We can see that what the Israelis are doing is not actually just, defeating Hamas and all these, things. We can see that they've destroyed every single house and moved people out down south. And it brought a lot of memories for us because it happened to our grandparents. But in 1948, they kicked people out and they took their houses. But in 2024, 23/24, they bombed these people, bombed their houses and kicked them out. So we feel like it's more devastating than 1948. So the mental health of the whole community has been very bad. We've got WhatsApp groups with hundreds of people in there, and most people are traumatized. Added to that we can't get our families out. People are still stuck in the churches, in the houses, in Rafah. We've got families stuck in Rafah. Nobody can get out. Australian government is not doing anything. So we feel like you feel like you're betrayed. You're an Australian citizen. You want your family to be safe, and the Australian government not doing anything about it. Since we came to Australia, we've noticed that the news about the Israelis is all about their personal life. So if anything happens, the violence, the conflict there, they portray or they bring out all the personal stories of Israelis, which is all good and beautiful, no problem. That's the right way to actually report about the impact of the conflict on people's personal lives. But they don't do that with the Palestinians. The Palestinians are more looked at as a collective, and these Palestinians, these numbers, that's how many of them died. But nobody goes and finds out how did they die. How was the funeral? How many people attended? How many people are crying? What's the impact of the death of that person on the family structure? But they do report it on the Israeli side. So from 1986, especially starting from 1987, which is the first Intifada, when we came to Australia, a year after we came to Australia, the Intifada news was on Australian television all the time, and it was more about what's happening to the Israelis and their lives destroyed, and people dying and injured and all this, but they don't depict the same story about the Palestinians. And so and it continued up until now. And so you see that the Australians have been brainwashed into thinking the Palestinians are the violent ones, the Israelis are the victims, and we are the ones who are occupying them, not they're the ones occupying us. And they're the victim, we are not the victim. What they, like the news don't say, is that there has been an occupation since 1967 that has destroyed thousands and thousands of Palestinian lives. We haven't seen any of these stories on television. We haven't seen stories of children who have been picked up in the middle of the night by the Israeli army, illegally kidnapped since 1967. Not for 1 year, not for 1 day, not for 1 month. This is 1967, that's like 57 years. 57 years, not only of children, men, women, including my cousin. 2 of my other cousins were beaten up so badly just because they were riding their bike. 5 years before, my other cousin that was kidnapped and disappeared for 18 days got tortured for no reason whatsoever. These stories don't go on TV. What goes on TV is the aftermath. After we just go, Palestinians go crazy. They are going crazy because you have created a brutal system of occupation and you're pretending it doesn't exist. And you're asking Australia, the Australian government and all Western countries to pretend that the occupation is not happening. But all we are seeing, all of this war, all of this death, all of this destruction, everything that is happening, it's a result of this occupation. The occupation is the sin. And that sin needs to be eliminated. The occupation needs to go. Sorry, I get very upset about it because they make us look like we are animals, we are not human. And I think it just climaxed in 23. That you're not allowed to have food, you're not allowed to have water, electricity. I mean, who are you to dictate whether 2 million people get to eat or not eat? It doesn't make sense. Why is it only the Palestinians that they're not allowed to eat? They dictate when they get food trucks coming in. It does not make sense. So that tells me that the occupier is Israel. It's not the Palestinians. They're the ones occupied. If you're saying you can't eat today, then you're the one in control. But they make it look like we're in control. We're not in control. To be honest, and this is hard for me to say, up until October 23, I had more Aussie friends, and I, socialized, and, I loved it. But after October 23, I actually can't socialize with them because I feel like they don't understand, even though they are understanding, but they don't understand. And so I found myself the past few months being more with my community. A lot of Palestinians, a lot of Palestinian Christians as well, came out of the woodwork. People who was just like me. I'm more an Aussie than a Palestinian. They just came out of the woodwork. We've got hundreds in our WhatsApp group, people who never did anything for Palestine. They're born here, never did anything. They're volunteering in our organization. They're driving around, getting food for families. They want to do something. They're doing social media. They want to be part of this community because they realize they're on their own. And so this has done, the good thing about it is brought the Palestinian community together. and people are like needing that solidarity, because we feel like nobody understands us from the outside. It's a good thing. It's hard being too Palestinian in Australia. If I wear my keffiyeh on the street, I know that I will be harassed. So sometimes I wear my keffiyeh dress and people look at me weird. Yeah, it's made us want to be more Palestinian. So we bought more keffiyehs, more Palestinian flags. I have a Palestine t-shirt now. I've never had one, but now I have one. I got more Tatriz clothes now. I'm very proud of it. I want to design. I feel like I want to also, even though I'm not a designer, I want to design Palestinian dresses with our culture in it. I feel like I want to tell the world about our art and culture because it's beautiful. It's thousands of years old. The idea started during the second COVID lockdown. I don't know if you remember, I think Gaza was bombed a little bit. There was like this time, 2021, there was some bombing of Gaza. And at the same time, we were locked in our homes. And I felt like I'm back in Ramallah, 1985, when, before we came to Australia, when the army would lock the town and would say, you're under curfew, and the curfew could last from 1 day to 2 weeks to 3 weeks. And then, nobody can get out of the house except for a couple of hours in the middle of the day to go and get your goods and then come back home. And it brought a lot of trauma for me. The second lockdown brought a lot of trauma. And I found myself, just before the second lockdown, we actually built a small, I call it meditation room. It's more like a sun room in the middle of the garden, because I just wanted to always go to the garden, but I didn't want to sit in in a dusty garden. So I told my husband, let's lock it up. Yeah. And so I found myself sitting there feeling like I need to do something, but I don't know what it is. And I don't know, it's just, I think, the Holy Spirit fell on me, and I felt like I want to do something for Palestine because of the trauma that it brought out for me, being locked up like that for 3 months in Sydney. And so I spoke with a few Palestinians that I knew. Let's do something for Palestine. We got to do something. We can't continue on like this. We got to end the occupation. My dream for decades was I want to see the occupation end before I die. That was like my dream, and I didn't dare to express it or tell people. And I just felt like I needed to do that. So I spoke with a few people, spoke with my cousin. She's got a master's in policy. She works for the UN development. She was on the negotiation team at the Palestinian Authority. So she knew her stuff. So she helped me with putting it together, getting other people to join us. And then we founded Palestinian Christians in Australia in order to speak up for Palestine, especially in the churches, within Christian circles, because we felt like there is a lot of misinformation and misrepresentation about the Palestine and the Palestinian people within the Christian circles. So that's how it started. And it was more to do advocacy. And for the first couple of years, we did a lot of advocacy, meeting with politicians, running, educational programs and sessions. But then after, October, we felt that the organization needs to do more community work, because we could see that the community is in need of it. So we want to do mental health programs. We started doing that anyway with our own community. But then once Gaza families started arriving in the past few months, we ended up saying we gotta serve the community as they're coming in. These people are coming with nothing. They've just lost their homes, their shops, their cars, their businesses, their jobs, their money. Some people are literally walking in with just the clothes on their back, and some people are even walking in without a passport because their passport was destroyed under the rubble in their houses. So part of the work that we're doing now is raising funds to house Gaza families. There's a lot of people coming. These people don't know where to go. So for them to end up in a house that we've helped them furnish, and we've supported so far 7 families. We've approved 2 more families to set up house. And that number 10 is on the way. If we raise more money, we want to do the same for another 10 families as well. We're expecting more families to arrive, and that's the work that we're doing now. I feel like the Holy Spirit has been leading us to get to this point, and the path is being opened slowly in front of us, but I can feel it's leading me somewhere. Right now, I can't say I hope for peace because I can't see that it will happen. There's a lot of hatred. I'm not in that place myself. I was before, but after I've seen the destruction, the deaths, the number of deaths, people being killed just to go and get flour, I'm not in a place where I would say, if you asked me this question 5 months ago, I would say I would love to see a 2-state solution. I would love to see peace. I would love to see that between the 2 people. Right now, I would love them to leave us alone. Definitely love that, to leave us alone and end the occupation in whichever way, shape or form. But I can't foresee that there will be peace in the short term. I'm in a place where I feel I need to contemplate what kind of people need to live on that land, because peace cannot come from people who hate each other that much that they would just kill them while they're going to eat. I mean, that's just gone way too far. But I am very clear that when you have a system that is oppressing people that much, that long, that far, I know in my heart, whether it's going to happen whether I'm alive or after after I die, that system is not sustainable and it will break. When, I don't know, but if any change needs to happen, it's just not lip service and not just putting lipstick on an ugly bride. It's gotta be something big. It's gotta be a whole total makeover of the people on both sides, because there's a lot of hatred, a lot of conditioning that they're the occupier and we're the occupied. There's a certain way that we behave towards them, and there's a certain way that they behave towards us, because the occupation has been there for decades, for way too long. If you want people to feel like they're equal, then you gotta lift up the oppressed and educate the oppressor, and that is going to be a long way to go. I just can't foresee that there's going to be peace anytime soon.
Any last messages you'd like to give apart from this?
A free Palestine is the last message. It will be free, because you can't suppress people for that long, and we're not animals, that's for sure. Yeah, thank you.